The concept of the invisibility of privilege has been developed by Peggy McIntosh. This analysis pioneered putting the dimension of privilege into discussions of power, gender, race, class, and sexuality in the United States. McIntosh relied on personal examples of unearned advantage that she says she experienced in her lifetime. McIntosh encourages individuals to reflect on and recognize their own unearned advantages and disadvantages as part of an immense and overlapping system of power. She encourages the reader to examine her own statements to understand this system of power. McIntosh compiled a list of privileges that she enjoyed simply because she was white in a white-dominated society. For example, she found that she could easily surround herself with people of her own race, and because many managers of retail stores were also white, her financial status wouldn't be questioned upon paying for an item with a credit card. She could be late to a meeting without her tardiness being attributed to her race, and when people talked about civilization or national heritage, they were really talking about her own race. McIntosh created a list of her own personal privilege because she was white and realized that most people never examined this aspect of their lives, and hence white privilege was an invisible trait. The privilege of not having to think about race provides advantages to whites, whether or not they approve of the way that they've acquired those advantages. So these are examples of white privilege. They are generally taken for granted and totally unexamined by majority group members. What we see is that in U.S. society, whiteness becomes more valued and respected. Physical characteristics associated with Anglo-Saxon ancestry are more valued, more beautiful, and more highly prized. European features such as straight hair, fair skin, and a slender nose are seen as beautiful. They're also more likely to be considered good characteristics. People with these characteristics have an easier time to access resources because they're more easily accepted by mainstream society. Whiteness becomes the standard against which others are judged. The invisibility of whiteness as a racial position doesn't mean that white people are never discussed. On the contrary, they're spoken about all the time. White people are all over the media. But when white people talk about other white people, the discussion is couched in terms of simply people and never as white people, is that it becomes the standard or the norm. What is to be expected in products, what is to be expected in our entertainment, and through all walks of life. A TV show is listed as a black comedy. A doctor or lawyer is described as a black doctor or a black lawyer. One is not labeled a white doctor or a white lawyer. And by doing this, we separate out the minority category, drawing attention to it, and then implicitly defining whiteness as the norm. It's important to understand the difference between underprivileged versus overprivileged. The term underprivileged refers to people who are deprived of opportunities and advantages enjoyed by other members of society. People with more opportunities volunteer to help the underprivileged, yet they don't see themselves as overprivileged. Their privilege stays invisible this way. There are not many negative stereotypes associated with whites. They don't get profiled for their whiteness, while other groups get profiled for their racial and ethnic backgrounds. So how did white privilege develop in our country? Don't forget that our country was founded by people that wanted to escape unjust social orders in other countries. Now recall that when European colonists arrived, there were already people living in the New World. Native Americans had a different sense of ownership. They did not believe that land was something that could be personal property. And the colonists brought with them superior weapons, firearms that limited the amount of hand-to-hand combat that had to be fought to become superior and dominant. The colonists also brought with them diseases from Europe that Native Americans had no resistance to. Weapons and disease took a deadly toll on the Native Americans, and the Europeans were able to conquer the New World. So the colonists then defined history and developed the doctrine of manifest destiny. This doctrine referred to the idea that it was a God-ordained destiny for whites to rule the New World. Europeans also brought with them their Christian beliefs, among them the belief that Christians were superior people chosen by God to spread their religion. And there is also in this country a value of what is known as meritocracy, or the basic idea that people can earn what they have. It's based on the idea that social position or birthright does not limit a person. Rather, if a person does not prosper in life, then it's their own fault, and not the fault of the social order or systemic issues in society.